Hello, everybody. Welcome to Refresh number 2 for this week. I'm Pastor Steve Green. Today is Thursday, May 28th, and our subject for this week is both sides of the coin are true. On Tuesday, we recalled a couple of scriptures that we've looked at regarding money. Both of these scriptures are pointing out different sides of the financial issue in the Bible. I'll read them again for you. Matthew 6:24, no one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will be loyal to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. And again, mammon is referring to all kinds of material gain and income and such. And Matthew 6:33 says, but seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. So with these two verses, we see both sides of the coin, and we also see that they don't fight with each other, or there's no friction between these two different perspectives, but they work perfectly together. If I do not serve God and mammon, or try to serve God and mammon together, but if I serve God instead of mammon, then that means that I am seeking first the kingdom and his righteousness, and perhaps ironically, by putting God first, then material things are added to me. So the two verses are complementary, and so it is with many Bible subjects, that there's two sides to the coin, and in the end they don't contradict with one another, but they're complementary with one another. Let's read a passage from the Old Testament, Deuteronomy chapter 8, and it will expand upon this issue, particularly financially. Deuteronomy 8, verses 6 to 17, a bit of a longer passage. Therefore you shall keep the commandments of the Lord your God, to walk in his ways and to fear him. For the Lord your God is bringing you into a good land, a land of brooks of water, of fountains and springs that flow out of valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley, of vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of olive oil and honey, a land in which you will eat bread without scarcity, in which you will lack nothing, a land whose stones are iron, and out of whose hills you can dig copper. And when you have eaten and are full, then you shall bless the Lord your God for the good land which he has given you. Now, that is the reality of Deuteronomy 8. That was just before Joshua was to lead the Israelites into the promised land. Today in the New Covenant, there is a financial blessing, a financial reward, a financial increase. In the overall scheme of things in the New Covenant, it's one of the smaller parts of where the benefit lies. There's so much richness, so much goodness, so much abundance in the kingdom that is not financial. We need to make sure we emphasize those things as well, and that we don't place too much emphasis on money. But that being said, do you not love that paragraph? That is such a wonderful paragraph of godly, loving, godly provision for us, and abundance, and his goodwill for us financially. He then goes on to say, beginning in verse 11, beware that you do not forget the Lord your God by not keeping his commandments. Remember, in verse 6 we started off by saying, you shall keep the commandments of the Lord your God. And now the next paragraph, beware that you do not forget the Lord your God by not keeping his commandments, his judgments, and his statutes, which I command you today. Lest, verse 12, when you have eaten and are full, and have built beautiful homes, and dwell in them, and when your herds and your flocks multiply, and your silver and your gold are multiplied, and all that you have is multiplied, when your heart is lifted up. Now here's a peril to financial prosperity, is it can cause our heart to be lifted up, and we'll see exactly how in a minute. And you forget the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage, who led you through that great and terrible wilderness, in which were fiery serpents and scorpions, and thirsty land where there was no water, who brought water for you out of the flinty rock, who fed you in the wilderness with manna, which your fathers did not know, that he might humble you, and that he might test you to do good in the end. And when you then you say in your heart, my power and the might of my hand have gained me this wealth. There's a human temptation to think that after God has blessed us financially, that really it was our own ability, our own intelligence, our own hard work, our own resources that earned that financial benefit for us. And then we become proud in our own accomplishments or our own perceived accomplishments, and then we don't put God first anymore. And so that's the warning here. So the idea again is to put God first, and then all these things will be added to us. And as all these things are being added to us, put God first. In the beginning, in the middle, and the end, we always put Him first. We seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added to us. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We're mindful of you. We're praying for you. It's a challenging world out there. These are challenging circumstances. This biblical issue we've been speaking of for the last 2 refresh messages can be a very challenging issue too. We're walking together and exhorting one another to aim for the highest spiritual ground. Have a great week, everybody.